Greetings and welcome to the Unit 2 of Module 1 of TALG. TALG is Teaching and Learning in General Programs. We have looked at in Unit 1 in the current context the colleges or the departments need to design and conduct their UG and PG programs to meet several stated outcomes to meet the accreditation criteria. So, it is required now to meet a stated set of outcomes. And there are many important characteristics of a good graduate should have besides sound knowledge in one or more disciplines. This is what we presented the characteristics of any good graduate. And right now our current unit will mainly try to explore the words education and teaching, because as all of you are going to be are teachers or potential teachers of one kind or the other, one needs to be familiar with the terminology of that particular field. First of all, what do we mean by education, what do we mean by teaching? That is, they are defined informally in this discipline. Why this is necessary? Generally graduates of let us say graduates of a master program or a PhD, they become teachers and they do not really acquire any training whatsoever with regard to teaching and learning processes. What are that is why many of us as teachers end up using words in very sometimes ambiguously, sometimes precisely, sometimes some words are used in an interchangeable manner and so on. In that case, when two of us are talking to each other, then we do not know what exactly we are communicating, because each one can understand a given word in a different way. So, the most important word obviously in education field is the word education itself. Let us look at what that is. Education in its broad sense refers to any act or experience that has formative effect on the mind, character or physical ability of an individual. Anything that you do, like I want to go on a trek, somebody tells you this is what you need to wear, this is what you need to do, and actually go on you trek that. That means this is not happening necessarily in a very formal setting. And also what happens in our daily life as we are interacting with the world through at home with our family members, at the job with our colleagues, or when we go out into the town or travel, we are constantly interacting with the outside world, or you are getting experiences, and those experiences have an influence on you. And so to that extent you are getting educated all the time throughout our lives, right from the day you are born to the death. You are continuously experiencing the external world or sometimes internal world as well, and then you are continuously learning. Then what is education? But now we are looking at education in a technical sense. It is a process by which society deliberately transmits its cultural heritage, that is its accumulated knowledge, values and skills from one generation to the other. Now the accumulated knowledge has become so vast, we start specializing, okay, or we have started specializing long time back. Now those specializations are becoming more and more, that is why we have more and more formal programs. So education, the way we are referring in this context, is concerned with intentional learning. Intentional learning like in schools, colleges and universities. So school will decide what are the things that you need to learn, and that is the education that we are referring to. Education is intentional learning. Now the issue comes, so somebody else is deciding what is it that you should be learning. So you start asking the question, to educate people wisely, we must know what we educate them to become. And this is where, as you would notice, there can be any number of opinions and differences, and the small group of people will make a decision what to teach, how to assess, and maybe majority of the people are not particularly happy with that. So, this becomes a kind of a national level dialogue in any country. And as you would notice from the things happening in the last few years, there are continuous changes that are taking place with regard to what to educate and how to educate. So, when you come to the what to educate is the issue that you are trying to address, then it is necessary to ask what can be the purpose of life and what sort of life it should be. The moment you ask such a question, it leads to the necessity that to consider education philosophically. Now suddenly it becomes education philosophy. No teacher actually specializes in education philosophy unless you are specializing in only in education, but one needs to be sensitive to that. In what kind of philosophical framework are we really operating? Sometimes if we are not happy with something, one needs to know why are we not happy with that, and if you want to do something, is it appropriate, in what context. So, educational philosophy becomes important there, but at least one needs to be sensitive. Everyone cannot specialize in educational philosophy. It involves the application of formal philosophy to education. So, what is it that we need to know about that? So, philosophy itself is not one, there is not one school. You have again this classification is again not unique. So, one kind of classification is these 5: idealism, realism, pragmatism, existentialism and analysis. This you can say a little more of Western way of classification. One can also look at it from Indian way of classification of philosophies, because in Indian philosophies also are not one, there are many. Now we take one particular one philosophy called pragmatism, because the reason for that is implicitly, because most of our educational practices now have come from the West. So, pragmatism is roughly the philosophical framework in which education is being planned and implemented. So, what does pragmatism say? It is practical, it is a practical and utilitarian philosophy. Okay, it does not leave some very nebulous questions and say we cannot come to conclusion and so on. It is a practical and utilitarian philosophy. There are no established ideas which will be true for all times. So, one is not looking for absolute ideas, and also something will not, it believes, pragmatism believes that something will not be true for all times. Pragmatists want education according to the aptitudes and abilities of the individual. Okay. One pragmatism does not want to enforce the same type of education on all people. Individual must be respected and education planned to cater to her inclinations and capacities. It makes activity the basis of all teaching and learning. That suits actually the present day approach to education, but this is broadly the framework of pragmatism. This is only to give a sample. We are not dealing with the philosophy of pragmatism in detail here. Now, coming to higher education, aims of higher education, if you take, when we talk about higher education, mostly post 10+2 activity. That means after the 12th standard, whatever you do, we call it higher education, and higher education will refer to the undergraduate degrees, the postgraduate degrees as well as research degrees. All are considered to be higher education. And as we said, the dominance of degree level education. To get an idea, you can imagine it will be in India you are talking about 400 lakhs of or more students in operating in the area of higher education in India. So, the numbers are very huge. And here when you come to the general programs, the aims of each program cannot be that universal. That is the first thing. That means I can design an undergraduate program meeting certain minimum requirement. The goals can be very different from, let us say, even if you take one a BA in economics offered in one institute need not be identical to BA economics offered in some other institute. It can be quite different. Though in colleges affiliated to a university, everybody will have to follow the same thing, which is very unfortunate, and that happens only in India, where you have few hundred colleges affiliated to one university, and all programs will have to be, for example, a BA in economics offered in all the affiliated colleges will have to be practically identical. Such a requirement does not exist anywhere else in the world. Okay, but even then the BA economics and BA sociology, if you compare them, the outcomes, the aims of those programs are not that universal. I can redefine my so called BA in sociology differently. That is the first thing. In general programs, aims cannot be that universal. So, universities and colleges offering the programs will have to identify these aims, we are calling them as program outcomes. What are the aims of this program? Though they will not be that different from one institution to another. For example, we have seen a good graduate has certain characteristics which we kind of explored in the previous unit. So, any graduate if you look for, you will say yes these, and possibly you will add more or you will edit a little more. So, to that extent these program outcomes will not be that different from one institute to the other, but each institute will have to define or identify its own program outcomes. Now, we will look at these program outcomes in a little more detail when we go into the next unit. Now, let us consider what is teaching. Teaching is the process of helping others to acquire knowledge, skills and values. Okay, that is what we call the teaching. The process of helping others. How do you help others? Yes, there are several processes, several ways of doing it. That is what the teaching explores. Teaching is a process of attending to people's needs, experiences and feelings, and intervening so that they can learn particular things. See, as you can see, the process of helping others will require some interventions. As defined by Smith, the teaching involves intervention. Now, what are these interventions? Interventions commonly take the form of questioning. You ask something from a student to find out from what position he is talking about, what knowledge he has and so on. Questioning, listening, giving information, explaining some phenomenon, demonstrating a skill or a process, testing the understanding and capacity of a student, and facilitating learning. These are the activities that constitute intervention. And these learning activities can be note taking, discussion, assignment writing, simulations and so on and on. We will explore these in the module related to instruction. So, this is what teaching is. Kindly note that teaching is a process of helping others to acquire knowledge, skills and values. And this is a field, teaching is a field that has been under consideration for maybe almost a century. So, to that extent it has been explored in great detail, and so many schools of thought exist So, let us look at some of them just only from the point of view saying that so many models exist. Now, what are models of teaching? Teaching models may help teachers to create conducive environment for learning. That means once I pick up a particular model of teaching which I think is suitable for my group of students, for the kind of subjects that I am teaching in my context, if I choose a particular model of teaching, then it will help me to create conducive environment for learning, and it will also help me to plan learning centered educational experiences. Okay? Because teaching is all right, but our goal is students have to learn. So, how do you create experiences, educational experiences that actually it facilitates the learning by the student. And this model also may help me to develop new and better forms of opportunities for education. Okay. This is what a model of teaching will help. Now, there are families of teaching models. Okay. You have information processing family, personal family, social interaction or development family, behavioral modification family. So many models, and in each family again you have several specific models. Again, if you take information processing family, I do not have the list, but it can be 10, 15 different teaching models. And what we look at under the personal family, what does it do? A particular family, this characteristics of this family of teaching models, this deals with the personal development of the individual. The primary goals are to increase the student's sense of self-worth and to help students understand themselves more fully, to help students refine their own emotions, to foster students' creativity. These are the broad characteristics of this family. And within this family you have a model called Glasser's model of teaching. William Glasser, he has given this model, which is followed by a large number of people even today. It consists of instructional objectives. Somebody will have to write the instructional objectives and understand the entering behavior of the students. For example, if you are teaching a particular course, the students who are coming to your course, what are their characteristics? What is the level of knowledge they have? That we call basically entry level behavior of the students. If the entry level behavior is not what you want it to be, then the course, whatever course that you offer, becomes meaningless, because the students will not be able to pick up that. And then the actual instructional procedures, and then performance assessment. So, what happens is these are the 4 characteristics of a Glasser's model of teaching, and the kind of model that we are going to deal later, what we call ADDIE, comes very close to this, though the words used are somewhat different, but it comes to close to that. I will call it an instructional model, whereas this is a teaching model. But the success of this model depends on the competency and ability of the teacher in terms of skills like formulation of objectives, use of proper strategies and techniques of evaluation. Unless the teacher acquires this ability, there are several, which are this: you should be able to formulate the objectives properly. And what may happen, you may want to from time to time slightly readjust these objectives, because either the growth in the knowledge related to that subject, or teacher's own understanding of the subject, or based on the experience, I want my students to learn something more specific in a particular way, then I will go back and redefine my objectives. Ability to formulate the objectives is the first skill a teacher must acquire. And then use of proper strategies proper strategies of facilitating learning. This is where you have endless ways of doing it. There is nothing like one particular way of doing. So, the teacher over a period of time should be able to explore different alternatives and kind of settle on the best strategy that is suited for his students and for the particular subject. And more importantly, in the end you have to measure whether the students have learnt or not. Okay, I am doing very well, I am planning all the learning experiences, but has the student really learnt? If so I need to measure to what extent the student has learned, and that is where you require the techniques of evaluation. So, what happens is a good teacher, as per Glasser's model, should be able to master these three, namely formulation of objectives and selecting a proper strategy, and then must know how to evaluate or how to measure the performance of the student. And now here we will say, again these are exercises which are not actually assignments. The exercises are designed only to sensitize to the many features of education and teaching, not really to master them at this stage, because mastering these is the goal of what do you call, you have programs like B.Ed and M.Ed and so on. We are not doing that, but as a teacher of any particular subject, one should be sensitized to all these issues, though you are not that is not your focus. So, give your own reasons why you should be concerned with philosophy of higher education. Why should you be concerned? And select a model of teaching that you consider will help you to plan your teaching the subject you are presently concerned with. As I said, there are dozens and dozens of teaching models. Can you explore this domain a little bit and say pick one model of teaching that you consider is suitable to your course, and please write justification for your choice, maximum 500 words. And there is huge amount of literature on the internet. There is no dearth of literature at all. You do not have to buy any books. Sometimes even books are available in electronic form free on the net. So, related books, please for example, we said there is a teaching models called personal family. Just search for personal family teaching models and learn briefly about it and pick which one is most suitable to your group of students and your institute and your course. And if it is okay with you, you can please share your justification of choice with the instructor at this again mail ID. Now, after this we will explain in the next unit again the other familiar words learning, assessment and instruction, and then we also try to convince ourselves or understand the centrality of assessment in facilitating good learning, because both students and faculty somehow consider the assessment is a necessary evil rather than it is central to teaching and learning. That is what we will try to argue, and we will keep saying that about its centrality right through this course on TALG. Thank you very much for your attention.